Be grateful for every piece of feedback because only criticism means growth for me. And so listen without feeling attacked, listen without justification because I'm not attacked. I don't have to be defensive. I can be open. And if I get feedback, then I can be open to ask even more. Well, what exactly should I do? And
Hi, and welcome to Lead Well.
how often are you struggling to tell someone that they should do things differently? Maybe they have made a mistake. Maybe they did something that you're not okay with. A lot of my clients struggle with doing that. They struggle with giving feedback, and especially negative feedback, constructive feedback, as it's usually called. And at the same time, they also struggle asking for feedback because, yeah, it's not always easy to hear what others have to say about us. Let's look into those two aspects of feedback, giving it and receiving it. So let's start with giving feedback, providing feedback to others. Now, the first thing I would ask is, what is your purpose of giving feedback? Do you want to praise your employees, your children, your animals? We're giving feedback to just everyone around us. Do we want to express our gratefulness, say thanks because we're happy about the results? Or are we rather not happy and want to criticize? Are we maybe even angry? Maybe our needs are not met. So the question is, do we want to confirm that what's going on is great and how things are done is good? Or do we want to change? Do we need others to change their behavior, their action? And if we want them to change, there is one thing I learned and I experienced. If I'm getting criticized, my openness to listen and my readiness to change is very, very small, close to zero. Because the first thing I do when I'm criticized, when I'm told that I'm not doing things in a best way or I'm not good enough, then of course, the first thing that happens is I want to defend myself. I want to find an answer to say, well, that's not true. That's not me. I didn't do that. I'm not like that. So, what can we do to make sure that we can say something that the other might want to take as an idea, as an impulse to change? What is the best way to approach it? And there are proven best ways. So, to make sure that the other can hear you, make sure that you're not attacking them, because as soon as you're attacking them, and words can be really, really hurtful and can be an attack and be felt like an attack. So instead of attacking them, make sure that you invite them to see things from your perspective. And how can you do that? Of course, the first thing to do is make it activity or behavior specific and very specific. Do not generalize. You're always late. But say, okay, in the meeting this morning, you were 10 minutes late. And I've noticed that. And I have noticed that you were late last week as well. So make it really, really specific. Provide very specific details of what you're experiencing. And talk about it from your perspective. So it's an I message. I have noticed. I have seen. I have observed. And also describe the consequences. Well, if you were 10 minutes late in the meeting, everyone else had to wait for you to start because we needed your opinion. So everyone else literally wasted 10 minutes of their time. And maybe you would say, well, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, but in a stand-up meeting, you only have 15 minutes. So if we miss 10 minutes, that's a lot. So what are the consequences? And then, and I think this is also the key, is focus on what you want to see instead. So I want you, I need you, I invite you, I ask you to be there on time next time because I need you there to be able to make decisions. I need you there to be able to have a meaningful conversation. So be specific, do it in a way that speaks from your perspective. I have noticed, talk about the consequences and focus on what you want. Or you could also say it's an observation and then the impact and the wish you have. And I would add a few additional things. Be consistent, especially when you're dealing with children and animals, but also employees, believe me, and students. Be consistent because if you're telling one person that they need to be on time and you're not paying attention to another one coming late, you will lose their buy-in. If you're saying it once, but then 3 times you're neglecting it, it will not work. So be consistent and follow through, because if you say, well, you have to be there on time because we need your input. If you're not there, I will need to put someone else into the project team. And the very first time that person is late again, you have to act on your promise. So follow through on what you have said. And then, of course, also provide timely feedback. It doesn't help if someone was late 3 weeks ago and you had 3 meetings in between, and then in a 4th week, because you're angry about something, you tell them, okay, you were late that time. That doesn't help, really doesn't have an impact. So it needs to be timely, especially again, if you're dealing with animals and children. With animals, you have a few seconds, if that. With children, the same. They need immediate feedback on what they did, because otherwise they cannot make that link. But before doing that, before everything else, I believe the most important thing is that you are distinguishing person and action or behavior. So really make sure that you, in your mind, appreciate the person as the person that she or he is. And only then you can talk about the behavior, and you will be much less emotional, and it will be not personal, because you're not criticizing, you're not providing feedback for the person, but you're providing feedback for their behavior and their action. And that makes a huge difference. And to start with showing appreciation, even if you're criticizing, make them understand that you value them as a person, as an employee, and tell them and let them understand. Because sometimes my coaches, then they tell me, okay, they should know that. They should be aware because, and I'm like, well, no, don't make assumptions there. Tell them, let them know right away that you appreciate them. And by the way, there is research again that shows that there is a 1-to-3, and some even say 1-to-5 ratio of positive versus negative feedback. So one piece of negative feedback has the same weight as 5 pieces of positive feedback. So what does that mean? If you're giving your counterparts, your employees, your coworkers, positive feedback on a regular basis, then one negative feedback will not hurt them, and they will probably be able to absorb it and to take it in much better, as if you're only providing negative feedback. Because we humans, we're made up in a way that we're focusing on the bad news much more than the good news anyway. And so to make sure that we feel balanced, we need much more good news than bad news because we're not hearing the good news as much. And you as a manager, you as a parent, and you as a person living with an animal, it's important that you always have a focus on the positive feedback so that if you need a change one, you can work on that. Now let's talk about taking feedback. I remember my early days at Gartner when I started off as a trainer in front of a room full of people, consultants and clients. And every time at the end of the course, I had to hand out a feedback sheet. And that from the entire course was the most difficult moment for me because I'm like, oh my God, they will judge me. And I really had to train myself to understand that everything I get back, every reaction, everything that they tell me is an opportunity for me because I can improve. I can only improve if I hear criticism, if I hear constructive feedback. Otherwise, I can't. If everyone just told me, well, Christina was great. Yeah, Christina was good. It doesn't help because I don't know where I can improve. I don't know where I can grow. And so my learning curve there was be grateful for every piece of feedback because only criticism means growth for me. And so listen without feeling attacked. Listen without justification because I'm not attacked. I don't have to be defensive. I can be open. And if I get feedback, then I can be open to ask even more. Well, what exactly should I do? And there are 3 questions that I love when gathering feedback. And they are really simple. And they also put the emphasis on the things, on the actions, rather than on me as a person. And those 3 questions are, what should I stop doing? So what really annoys you? What do you think is not necessary? What should I start doing? So maybe the other person has an idea that I could take on, maybe a behavior that I should change. And the 3rd question is, what should I continue doing? And that's where the positive feedback comes in because, yes, what is it that I could do? Maybe do more of, maybe do less of, but continue doing. So, what should I stop doing? What should I start doing? And what should I continue doing? And as a little exercise for this week, I invite you to think about one piece of positive feedback that you can share with anyone per day. So at least one. A client of mine once said, okay, from now on, I will send one appreciative email to one of my colleagues every single day. And it made a huge difference for her. So I'm curious to hear how much of a difference that makes to you. Thank you. And may you always lead well, yourself and others, and tell them about the great things they've been doing and listen to their feedback. Bye for now.
This was Lead Well. Now, what is the one thing that you're taking away from this episode? Please share in the comments below and do share the podcast with your friends and family, but only if you like it.